I think they really get to be able to see like, oh, this is something that other people appreciate for just my work.
Mm.
Not because I'm incarcerated or because of this or past history. They just enjoy what I made and for whatever reason, because of religious reasons or because I want to get better at painting or because of a past history. And they are so grateful.
Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of the TF Cast. I am your host, Willis Stout, and this is your favorite Mankato-based arts and culture podcast.
Hey, Grum here. It's February 8th in the solarium, and we're having a good day.
And I'm your host, Jacob Bases. Today we are so pleased to welcome back Dana Sikkila of the 410 Project to talk about what's going on at the 410 Project. Do you just want to start up with the juried art show, and then we can get into like the kind of myriad of things?
Of course. Well, thank you guys for having me on here. Greatly appreciated. Yeah, we got a lot of new things coming up at the 410 that we're really excited about. For the first thing, like coming up right now, basically, is our annual juried exhibition. And so this is our largest show of the year. It is an exhibition where anyone within the community can enter artwork. There's no set scale, or theme. And it's really about bringing people together to exhibit their work, to network, to get their work from their studio into an exhibition space or a public space, and to really help people get familiar with their community and just how to showcase their work. So people can put work in. It's $5 to enter up to 3 things, 2D or 3D. Everything gets submitted and hung in the gallery space. So it's probably on average about 120, 130 works of art. And if you've been to our location downtown, we're not the biggest place in the world. So it's like stacked from floor to ceiling, but it's really great. And then we have an outside juror come in and select awards.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure by the time that this actually airs that it's going to be, the input will be closed, like you won't be able to submit anymore, but maybe you could talk a little bit about the juror and like what the event's going to be like.
Definitely. So each year we select a different juror or artist who has like a wide variety of understanding of different methods or processes, the history of different ideas or contexts of art. And we usually like to get someone from the northern portion of the state or the metro, someone that maybe isn't familiar with people's work down here in southern Minnesota, because we like it for them just to have separation from the artist in their work and just look at the work objectively. But we're also celebrating 20 years of being open here in the Mankato community, so I wanted to bring someone back that had a little bit of tie to this space. So we had reached out to artist and educator Nancy Ariza, who used to volunteer underneath me, maybe in like 2013, 14, a long time ago when she was getting her undergrad at MSU here in printmaking. And she went to do the Master's of Education at St. Mary's. And now she teaches part-time at MCAD. And she's the program and education director for the Minnesota Museum of American Art in St. Paul.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
And she's a printmaker. She does amazing things. And so brought her back down here. I sent her an email. I said, Nancy, will you come and hang out with us again and participate? And she was super excited to come back to kind of like the beginning.
Yeah.
Where that kind of giving back to your community and being an educator as well as an artist really kind of started for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she'll come down and select awards. So it's like best in show, second, third, fourth, a couple honorable mentions. And it's really about, for the juror, what work she feels stands out in her mind for whatever reason. So that's why we always encourage everyone to participate, because a lot of times with these shows and the idea of awards being given, that can be a little intimidating. But when it comes to, like I said, the juror comes in, they don't know who made it, how long you've been working in your field, or maybe this took you 10 minutes or, 10 months to make. So it's just great. You never know who's going to place. So that's always exciting.
Cool. Yeah. I'm sure all the different jurors have a different like preference and style
100%.
too. So you could like, it's tough to know what's going to be like the favorite pick ahead of time.
Yeah. And it's, art is subjective,
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we announce the juror, everyone's like, oh, well, they're a printmaker or a painter or a sculptor. They're going to select those things or those methods. And it's usually the opposite. Usually jurors are attracted to things that they're not familiar with making, either in materials or content. And it's great because we've had like some of our younger artists as young as like 6 or 7 win awards.
Oh, wow.
To undergrads, to people that have been making for 20, 30 years. So it's always, I don't know, it's always a surprise and exciting, not just for what gets selected, but who gets selected as well.
You mentioned 20 years too at the 410. Has shows like this been going on for that whole time, or is this sort of like a newer evolution of the 410 project?
Well, I know when they had opened the space originally, they did some smaller scale juried shows. And then I think they realized the artists who were leading the way back then, it's a lot of work to organize a show and hang 130 pieces in less than a week and make tags and labels and communicate with 60 artists. And it's just a lot. And so they had kind of put it to the side a little bit. I had stepped in volunteering in like 2009, 2010. And I was like, oh, we should kind of bring this back. And it's like, oh, it's a lot of work. And I was like, well, I'll kind of help. And so then it became a regular thing in 2012. So we've been having the juried show January, February, at the beginning of the year since then, and it's just grown. And we have artists from all over the state that enter work in. It's not just people located here in our Mankato area.
Has that been something that you've noticed over working, like I think I did the math, it's like 14 years you've been working with the 410 project?
Yeah, around there.
Has the scope of how far people are reaching out to the 410 project broadened?
Oh, 100%. I think every single year, I think not just through that show, but all of our programming and through social media and just like my networking too, working with artists throughout the whole state, people want to show their work down here in southern Minnesota. They want to connect with our community. They want to show at the 410 just because that's part of what being an artist in the state means. And I think if we can provide an approachable space to do that, that's really the goal, because we shouldn't just learn from each other or appreciate this community's art or music or whatever it is. It should be like, I think our state should be one big chunk, not just Mankato here.
Yeah. Is it a pretty normal, like the model that is the 410, is this like something that you're going to see replicated in a lot of places like outside of Mankato, or is there, you're going to find that it's different kind of gallery structure? I've never been in like a big metro where they have tons of galleries, so I don't actually know how those things operate.
Well, there's like this range of like, you have like very like city run art organizations to more people like collectives, like people pooling their money together, like 10 artists renting a storefront, and they cycle through like their work and their shows as a collective. So I think it just ranges. There are spaces out there, similar to what we're doing, artists run for a direct community. I think with us, we're so fortunate, again, being a volunteer managed space running off of donations from the community to basically keep the lights on for 20 years.
Yeah, that's wild.
In a population town of Mankato size.
Yeah.
I think is very telling, and I think we're able to sustain because of the scale of Mankato. A lot of times when you open up this smaller scale of a space in a metro like Duluth, Minneapolis, St. Paul, just when it comes to like money and just like making things happen and gaining your audience, it's a bigger pool to pull from. But I think 20 years ago when the 410 started, that was brand new. No one had seen anything like the 410. And to where it's just grown and grown and grown, but to where then other spaces are popping up, or other types of spaces are popping up here, to where we can kind of all work together and keep things happening here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too on in the show, I think we should touch on the other reason we've got you on the show here today. I don't even know how to introduce it. I'll either let Jacob try, or maybe we can just kick it off to you.
Let Jacob try.
Oh, sure. You should talk about your incarcerated artist program. It's real easy segue there.
There you go. Well, they're in the juried show, so it transitions. So just this past summer, fall, well, I guess like, I don't know, past like 6-9 months or whatnot, We have started a program where we're working with incarcerated artists to get their artwork out into the community, to provide them with opportunities for just like being a part of exhibitions, other shows, other types of projects, and things like that they don't have direct access to. Not necessarily direct access to while they're incarcerated, but to where they don't have that middleman or support system to put those opportunities in front of them. So this last summer, I teach up at Mankato State in the art department, and I taught a course this last summer through the Scholars Serving Time program through MSU, which allows people who are incarcerated at one of our state facilities, I think it's Waseca, Shakopee, or Faribault, the opportunity to get a associate degree, so a 2-year degree. And so they're able to apply to go to college to get this 2-year degree. And this summer I taught an arts course, part of that associate degree program. And through that, even though it was kind of just, the classes go very fast. I could really tell just like working with the guys, because that was over at Faribault and that was a male facility, that they were like dying to have more engagement in general. Didn't matter what the subject matter was, but then when it came to art, that was really a huge progression forward for a lot of them. They were using art to talk about past or to talk about trauma, to talk about like their future goals, and being in a room where it was just like the students. So I had 14 students of ages from like 23 to like late 50s, obviously all male. And they're presenting this work that they have made in relationship to past, or just like making something for the first time in 20 years. And then they're sitting there and they're sharing all of the concept and the meaning behind this work to their peers. And to just share space with that kind of vulnerability in a room that is very high masculinity is very powerful. And to see art being used as just like the brain processing and opening up. And that's something I've always believed in from the very beginning of becoming part of the 410. So just seeing it in a different format versus working with people that have access to art all the time, or to children. And so then when that class came done, it was like, okay, what can we do? Because when the class is done, their materials get taken away, like all their art supplies. A lot of them, if they have tablets, the tablets get taken away where they can see like pictures and images and reference photos. So it's like, okay, what can we do to help that keep going for them? So then I just started reaching out and communicating with several of them, saying, hey, would you be interested? Like, we have shows coming up. We can get you the information. But if we're going to work with you, I said to several of the guys, you have to promise that you're going to dedicate your time to your practice. And to where they've all stepped up and they've submitted things to shows, or we've asked them to make almost like posters for different opportunities at the space. And then we we pay them to do that. So then they get money back to them to where they can purchase supplies on their own, like sketchbooks, paints, pencils. And now we're helping them apply for other exhibitions at other places.
Wow.
You know, so we're kind of playing that middleman agent. But it's really exciting because every guy that we're working with is going to be released within the span of a year to a handful of years. And so it's like, what are they going to do when they come back into our society, and how can art play a role right now for them to be thinking forward when it comes to their goals and just like their own self-existence outside of being incarcerated, but back into society.
Sure. Yeah, I really like the idea of putting forward some kind of, like, you don't see the incarcerated people in our society really at all, you know. I can't think of a place where I've so directly like interacted with a person like without having to, you know, kind of go there or like see them on some reality TV show or something awful like that. What has the experience been working with that system? Like, have they been happy to allow you to help these people? Do they see that as like a good form of work? I mean, I can't imagine the kind of like tone in in a jail. It's not my it's not my spot.
Well, and every facility is different because it depends on who is running that particular facility, like Shakopee versus Faribault. Each one has different limitations and guidelines. I'm lucky enough to where I do work with Faribault to where they, I don't want to say relax, but they allow artists to purchase certain materials from like a catalog and place orders and to keep certain things in their cells and to mail them out. I know like facilities like Shakopee, they can like barely have anything in there. Like they can have like a pencil and paper, so it just depends. But it's hard. There's a lot of, like we've tried to mail things in to our guys and it gets rejected because of whatever reason, even if it's like printed off information, because one of our guys is interested in like going into nonprofit work. So we've been like sending him like Xerox copies of like nonprofit engagement books, and half of that gets like thrown away for some reason. They think it's inappropriate or I don't know. So there's a little bit of backlash, but I try to keep it in just direct communication with the guys versus going through the facility, because going through the facility, there's just a lot of conflict.
Sure.
It's more work for them. They're having, so.
What do you hear? Oh, go for it.
Go ahead, Willis.
What do you hear from the people doing the artwork, like from the individuals? What do you hear from them about the program?
I think we've been so fortunate to be able. So we were providing these opportunities, and to me, it's the same as we would provide an opportunity to like any of you guys sitting here. Like I see it as the same. It's a little bit more work, but we're all adult human beings. Like that should be fair. So it's great to be able to. We get their work, we document it, we send them then photos of their work, so then they have that themselves, or to send to their family. Or we email documentation of the work to their family or friends. But then they get to see that. And then we also send them photos of their work in the exhibits. Or if they sell their work, then they get that money. If they sell their work or there's a lot of just like appreciation for it, we have people like write comments, and then we get the comments to the guys or the artists. And I think they really get to be able to see like, oh, this is something that other people appreciate for just my work. Not because I'm incarcerated or because of this or past history. They just enjoy what I made, and for whatever reason, because of religious reasons, or because I want to get better at painting, or because of a past history. And they are so grateful just to be included, to have something that they've created have their name on it and not their DOC number, because that's how they're identified, as their Department of Corrections number while they're in there. So I think it's just being seen as a person for their own making and creativity versus, again, just the assembly line of how they're seen sometimes in there. So it's very amazing to me to see the effect it has on them in even just a short time. So that's why it's like, how can we progress this and keep it going?
Yeah, and that's how things are labeled within the 410. Like it's not necessarily saying like, oh, this is an incarcerated person. It just has their name. And
yeah, and we've like through our social media, we're sharing a lot of the images from our guys, and we do label them as incarcerated artists on there, just to make people aware that, we're working with these people. We support them, again, the same as anyone else who's coming and exhibiting in this space. So we just want to make people aware. So that's why we label it there. But when it comes to the exhibition, everyone's equal. Right? We're not labeling this as a 10-year-old on the tag, and then this is someone that's in prison.
This guy's got a funny
and then
mustache.
This person is over here. It's like, and so I think they actually really appreciate that too. There are some nonprofits and exhibition programs that only show, in our state, that only show incarcerated artists, which those organizations are great because they are advocating for prison reform and a lot of other things. But I think a lot of the times I've talked to the guys, there's not as much of a level of engagement or communication outside of just like, let's take your work, let's exhibit it. What we're doing is we're talking to them like, how can you get better at your craft? What can we provide to you for techniques and references? Apply for shows, write statements. I kind of want to get to the point to where maybe some of these guys could possibly even start applying for like grant funding, because they are residents of the state of Minnesota. So is that even an option for someone incarcerated to
Yeah,
get an artist
no
grant.
clue.
So that's kind of like my next like
Yeah.
brain venture to see what the possibility is.
Wow.
Apart from being in a classroom with these people, how do you find more people to work with? Like, is it like word of mouth within the prison system?
Pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's like through several of my students who live in different areas. Because right now we're just working with Faribault for what we can like manage communication and like mailing wise, to be honest. To where my students go, and then they're going to other artists who they see making that weren't part of my class or part of the program, who they feel could like benefit or we could trust to work with as well. So yeah, it's definitely been word of mouth, and to where then they mail in things to us or they communicate with us through like the email system. So yeah, it's definitely a network that's being started in there for artists who want like bigger opportunities. So
Is there any type of like release program or anything like that? Like, have any of the people who you've worked with thus far been released and like shown work as people who are no longer in prison?
I had a student this summer who was insanely talented, and he was released in September. And so we had an exhibit of the summer classes work at the 410 in August. So everyone in there was part of the summer course. And he had asked me, he's like, well, I'm getting out in September. Can you just hold my work and my money and I'll come get it? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so he came and we just talked about like his life and his goals. He had been in there for about 5 years. And I said, well, here's my email. If you ever want to talk to me about anything art or career related. And I know he's still going through like the whole process too of just like, what does it mean just to communicate in general with like someone at the gas station? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's a very, very long process, just from what I've been told by the guys that I'm working with who have been in and out too. And some of the guys I work with they're in late 30s, early 40s. They've been in there since 17, 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
You know, they've never been on the internet.
Whoa.
And so it's like, how does art play a role in kind of that awareness too of what the world is like now when they're going to be released in 2 years? We have a lot of those conversations. So it's not just about taking their artwork and putting it on the wall, constantly talking to them about just how this is just like a liaison to other things and whatnot. But so we haven't really worked too much. Only Johnny was his name. He got out and was released, to where hopefully in a little bit we'll be able to work with him once he gets a little bit more settled. And right now we're helping one of my students from the summer. He's going to be released in December, and he wants to apply to go to the U of M or MCAD and get a kind of work. He wants to work in like film or animation, things like that. So I'm kind of helping him get a portfolio ready to apply for like a college. Like MCAD's can be intense.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great opportunity for folks to get connected with the process and something to kind of work with too.
Yeah, because it's like any of us, we're not familiar with what it means to like show our work or to apply for things or to apply for a grant. That's not common knowledge. And we're lucky enough to where we have easy access of getting on the internet or talking to a friend, like, hey, how was that process? Or what does that look like? Or what, or advice too. So again, it's kind of just breaking down that communication wall and being that person for them to kind of seek out for that, to just gain more opportunities now. It's only going to benefit them later on.
Are there like really strict rules with how you like interact with them, or the type of personal relationships or anything like that you can have with them?
Yeah, we've like with teaching through MSU, it was pretty strict. We had to do a lot of training on how, especially being a female in a male facility, just like the appropriateness of things. And so obviously we keep everything like very like arts driven communication. Nothing gets like personal by any means, but to where, we have to be very mindful of like if we're sending them like reference photos or basically sending them anything, period.
Yeah.
There's very strict guidelines on how much can be mailed, what can be mailed, how many images versus how much text, what's the content of it and the reasoning and who it's also going to.
That's got to be really hard when you're like dealing with something as vulnerable as what you're doing to like not get like not like emotionally involved like a relationship obviously, but like just to like not be emotional with people you're trying to get to express their emotions really intensely.
Well, and I think too, it's like if I didn't care about these people somewhat, I wouldn't be doing this, or
Yeah.
else they're just another number to me then,
Yeah.
too, or using it for some sort of odd gain, but it's a lot of work to be doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have to be mindful of that too, of what you kind of shut down sometimes, but where you're still being open, because I want them to trust me
Yeah.
too with their artwork. Same as like people give us their artwork to hang in the juried show. It's like $1,000 to spend all this. They're like, here, Dana, protect this and put it on the wall. And if it's, and we like manage their money for them to get to them or their family, or we communicate. Like I communicate with several of the guys as parents
Mm.
to where I want us to at least have a line, but to where there's still a
Yeah.
relationship to where they're trusting me to help kind of represent them as an artist to where they don't have that, to the people they don't have access to.
What kind of arts are popular within, like before you come in, like what do these people do to get their art out, when they're incarcerated? Are they sketching or writing or, some kind of, I mean, I always think everyone's kind of an artist, so.
Oh, 100. I think so too. Like, even if we don't know it. Well, I think there's a lot of like, just like general, like drawing, painting. Like I said, they do have access to like Dick Blick catalogs and they can order certain things through there. I know writing is a huge thing. The Minnesota Prison Writing Workshop, that's a nonprofit in the Twin Cities. They have writing programs within the state facilities that focus a lot on like poetry-based stuff. I don't know. They're like huge in all the facilities. I know those guys really appreciate those. But they do a lot of like beading to kind of that like less conceptual work, but more like process orientated things as well. So kind of just ranges, I guess.
But when they start working with you in a class, it's more like painting and drawing kind of stuff.
Yeah,
or-
and to where, or like charcoal, painting, drawing, some cut paper or torn paper, I guess. There's no like cutting paper. Yeah, to where, well, and a lot of those guys, so some of them, if you have money, you can buy materials to have in your cell.
Yeah.
But does everyone have that kind of money? No. So the only time they were able to really use paint, maybe for the first time in a really long time, maybe since they were a child, was during that class.
Yeah.
So that was a whole new learning process of what even it meant to use art materials besides just like a ballpoint pen that they would have access to, or, a crummy pencil with no eraser. And yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, someone buying a piece of work off the wall for like $40 could actually have like a serious impact on their ability to produce anything.
Oh, 100%. Selling something for like $20
Yeah. Well,
is a lot. A lot of those guys, they have jobs while they're incarcerated too. But they're getting paid less than $1 an hour for some of those jobs in there. And so that obviously doesn't accumulate. So that's why it's like, okay, if we're giving you money back into there, obviously it's up to them to spend it on whatever they want. But a lot of them, it's like they are buying sketchbooks, they're buying pencils to make more work to then apply for more shows, not even just with us now, but like other places. Like people are coming to me now because they're seeing what we're doing and they're like, well, how can we get your artists to like show in Duluth or show in Grand Rapids, Minnesota? And so like I said, I'm just the middleman. I'm like the agent here. I'm just like, do you guys want to be in a show? These are the deadlines. This is what, and they pay, like they send us money orders to pay for their entries, and just like anyone else has to participate, but
cool.
just a longer of a process.
Yeah.
What has the response been from the wider public and, just in general?
It's been like a mixture. Obviously, like from the guys we're working with and their families, they're like incredibly grateful. And then I think if you're directly related to the 410 or what we're doing, I think you understand like the reason why we're doing this, and kind of going beyond just like who comes into our space will provide them with that. I think, I don't know, it's been a little bit of mixed reviews, and we've kind of talked about it. I know like the Free Press had put out an article about it, and there were some people, the good old like Free Press comments, everyone's got to, why are we helping these horrible people do anything? Well, and I think too, it's some people view me as like a female helping these men, and there's like weird context to that, which is obviously not the case. So I don't know, it's a mixed bag. But then we have people that see what we're doing, even just through like little bits on social media, and they're really like supportive of it, and they're like, what can I do to help or provide a more positive experience for someone else that isn't in the most positive situation or surrounding at the current time? So it's a mixed bag for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a really interesting project, just on the merits of like all the things you can learn through talking about it. I mean, like a lot of people might not ever think that, they're making less than $1 an hour, but like I don't, like I think that most people are going to take pause and be like, is that a way we should treat people even if they're incarcerated? Like that is, not necessarily an ethical thing to do. I would say it's an unethical thing to do, actually. But I think for such an invisible population that it's a good thing to do, and having the goal of incarceration be reintegration into society. Like if we're going to put people in cages at all, which once again, not really my thing, but like shouldn't the point be to get people back out? And I see a lot of that, especially if we're talking about like the way people think about prison, that they think there should be all these extra punishments in there. And like, I think it should be almost kind of the opposite. Like we should be helping people become what they, I don't even want to say weren't, because I don't know how the justice system works all the time. But I'm really often seeing people talk about prison, and people talk about like extra judicial punishment that they think should happen to people in there. And I think that's really disgusting. So I appreciate the helping.
Well, and too, like Faribault, I'm pretty sure they're the only, or one of the only state facilities that doesn't have any arts programming period in the facility. So there's no like art classes or that kind of outreach within their programming system, besides taking a class in like if you're enrolled in college courses.
Is there an incentive to? Is it like when you build a public building, like X amount, you have to have like art on the walls, like, or is it just someone has come in and decided to make it their thing?
I don't know how that really works. Again, I think that's more of the internal of who's making those decisions, because I know Shakopee and Waseca both have arts programs, part of like just like the general programming of the facility for rehabilitation. And I know like with Faribault, that was another reason why those guys were like, is there anything you can do to like even just help like a few of us, just because there isn't even a room to go to there that is providing any kind of creative experience besides just what they're doing individually by themselves. So that was another reason why it was like, okay, this is important to do this here, because there's less options versus some of the other facilities in our state.
How do you see this growing or evolving over the next couple months to years? Is it something you see changing at all, or is it kind of a process you're just looking to get locked in and make some progress with here?
I don't know. It's a very fluid thing, because it's something like my name, I would feel could be turned off really quickly to communication to those guys. They can deny access for you to communicate. So I'm not putting any like, we're going to develop this thing, like we're working with human beings, and we're working with a system that I can't dictate at all, the prison system. So we're just taking it kind of like one opportunity at a time. And it's really up to them. Like we're not forcing them to do any of this stuff. We provide them with different opportunities. I know that some guys are drawn to different types of things. So it's like, okay, I know this would be a good opportunity for this person versus this person, just because of what they're working or how fast they work or how engaged they are. Because a lot of the guys that we're working with too are also enrolled in college courses, so they're having to do all their college work plus make work. It's like you're going to school here at MSU. Like you have all your other stuff and your jobs, and then you got to make your artwork on the side, and then get it in the mail in time. So it's a lot too. So it's just trying to cater an experience too for each creative we're involved with. So I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of other stuff that affects it versus just me communicating.
Yeah. Like you said, it's, just working with humans and complex processes and systems. So one day at a time,
Yep,
do what you
100%.
can. Cool.
So yeah, we're fortunate that they can be included in their juried show because, like I said, that's good for their brain. But like I said, that their friends and family can then come and participate in person,
Yeah.
and we document it, and they get to see that as well, and hopefully just motivates all of us that are part of the show
Yeah.
to keep doing stuff for the next show and the next opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of gone over the prison stuff. Do you want to maybe give us a quick update on just kind of what you're personally working on, or any Dana stuff? We got any big pieces of work in the makings, or you don't paint dogs anymore? Or, I don't know.
I still do some dog draws,
Heck yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've just been like really involved just developing like new 410 stuff. We got some new youth programming coming up as well. That's kind of like advocacy and art, I don't know. I feel like that's like a lot of encompassing of what we do down there lately. But it's like, I don't know. I have a show at the Art Center of St. Peter coming up in a year and a half. And I'm just trying to build like all brand new work and focus on my own like creative stuff and like mixed media between printmaking and painting. So I'm kind of starting at the very beginning
Oh, really?
at a new body of work, and like there's been a lot of transition too with just how I think art wise and what's important, and giving myself time to make and create, and not just giving all my energy to my administration and promotion work. But it all balances. So there's some new things coming. I have some new potential project bike ideas too. So we shall see when it gets nicer outside.
Busting the trailer out again.
Ooh.
We shall see.
All right. Well, you heard it here first.
Yes, we'll find out. Big things coming.
Big things. I didn't say that. Just things.
That sounds a whole new body of work for an upcoming show. That sounds pretty big and exciting.
Yeah,
That
and I
sounds
think
cool.
too, it's with running the space, I'm always like, okay, it's like the step forward. I never want to be static within myself. And I don't want my space to be static either. So that's why it's like working with new bodies of people. So that's when it came in with the incarcerated artists. It was like, okay, how can we progress this forward? And then how can that jump on to other things as well? And I think we've always kind of worked that way, is working with different audiences and see where they take us and who can benefit from, even in a small way, big or small, from us being there and being open. But who knows? You never know. Next week could be totally
Yeah.
different.
I got like one more question that's kind of just general, but like looking out the window at the 410 project in the last, like
Out the window.
2 to 5 years, I feel like the landscape of downtown has changed, and we've had a few more like art spaces pop up down there. Has downtown changed in a meaningful way? Or is it still kind of like people are coming to the thing they go there for? Or is it becoming more of a spot you can? I don't even know how to describe it exactly.
I get what you're saying, just with like the progression of like you said, development and the variety of things now downtown. And that's always been really great for me. Like we've been in that space for so long.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen the transitions of what it was to what it is now, like very, very hands-on. And I don't know, it's like we're in the bar area, which has pros and cons to it, as always. But for a long time, it was really exhausting that's all it was. And I think a lot of people viewed us down there in that pot of businesses as not really being important because people came down there to drink and eat, and why is art even in the mix of that at all? So I know there was a lot of shame on us taking up space. But I think, too, obviously we weren't going to move, of course, even though some people wanted us to. But just I think with the progression, too, of more like entrepreneurs in our town, and people just like opening up more independent spaces and not necessarily having to rely on like big developers and like bigger real estate support. I think, there's been more options for people, or maybe not more options, but just like it being a regular thing now to be like, oh, I want to like open up my own space and run this small business or a smaller organization and host these events. Like it's just becoming more common and more safe. And I think, too, because people know if I open up something like this, is there an audience for it as well? And there is here. And I think, we witness it, and we witness it with the other spaces that are opening up, too. And hopefully, eventually, I want it to be a little bit more fluid between all of us. But I think, when people open up things, it takes a while to gain momentum and what it means to have relationships with your downtown neighbors as well, or wherever you're located, I guess. So it's exciting to me because I want that, because that only supports our space as well for why we're there and why we should be there in that downtown location. And if things just kind of keep growing, hopefully the support will just keep coming from even like the bigger entities as well.
Yeah. I just I feel like that kind of the block that Walgreens is on has become a little bit more
600 block?
Yeah, the 600 block. That's been a little bit more developed, and even just having like that boba shop down there along with a coffee shop.
People love it.
Yeah, and I really hope the boba shop doesn't close because I've gone there.
I don't
should
think
make
they
some
will,
stuff for them.
there's people in there all the time. The owners are great from my
They were nice to
understanding,
me.
which I am pro positive ownership.
Sure. Are you have you had any of it? Have you had like the waffles or anything?
I have not. We've gotten some free samples.
Ooh.
Ooh, yeah. I guess when I'm downtown, I don't really think about like going out to the other things. I like go down to work, and then you kind of get stuck in there. It's like the dungeon, 410. So eventually, but I know a lot of times when we have artists come in and community members are always coming to or from River Rock or the Boba Place or Filling Station. So that's what I know. I kind of like the food places mixed with the more like activity based places.
Yeah,
Sure.
I like that. It's fun to grab a drink and look at some art or go cruise through the bookstore.
Yep, totally.
You mentioned there were some new youth programs that you were working on, and then I guess my final wrap question is like, how can people get involved? Either, I think it might be a little late for this jury show, but future jury shows, how can people stay up to date? And then any opportunities at the 410 coming up here soon.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a youth program that is starting. It's called Be Real Banners. And during COVID, we started these banner making workshops where we were teaching young people how to sew on sewing machines. And we were hosting these nights where they could come in and with like this massive amount of fabric, they were cutting up and designing their own advocacy banners. But sewing with a sewing machine for a lot of young people is very intimidating and scary. So we wanted to bring back the banner making and like expression programs, but to where they're able to make banners with like painting and drawing. So a younger population could even participate. So we're hosting some banner making evenings for youth 7 to 18 years old. The schedule is on our Facebook, and we're going to be putting it on our website here soon. It's free to attend. Youth can come in. We're leading short conversations on what just advocacy means to them, or just what being happy means to them in their home or at school or their communities, and to where they'll be given their banner of whatever color they want, and they'll be able to illustrate or put words or images, however they want to express themselves about what is important to them. Through those sessions, we're going to kind of collect them all, and we're going to have an exhibit at the end of March at the 410 with these banners created by local youth. in regards to what they're passionate about. And so it's programming and exhibiting in the same program. So we're starting that here pretty soon. And then if anyone, like our juried shows are every year around the same time. So it's kind of just like if you missed it this year, always be focusing for next year, because it's like, I'm going to do that next year. And then it's like the month
next year
of, and you're
rolls
like,
around.
oh, crap.
Yep.
That happens all the time. But, we have our Halloween show every year. We're always taking submissions for solo or group shows. People can email us for that information. Look on our Facebook. Everything is mainly updated on there versus our website's a little bit slower just because it's a little trickier to update. But feel free to reach out through social media, Instagram, Facebook, email. We'd love to hear from you. Just if you have an idea or a question or you want to apply for a show, we're here to listen, communicate, and help you in whatever you need, creative-wise.
Excellent. Well,
Cool.
we're glad the 410's here and excited to see it keep doing what it does.
Awesome. Thank you for the support, everyone.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
for coming on.